Wanda Hernandez, and I am the chair on the board of directors of UP New York.
Good morning! I am Wanda Hernandez, and I am the chair of the board of UP New York.
We are a grassroots membership active organization led by people living by people living with HIV and AIDS. I also work for the Bronx AIDS Services as a peer outreach volunteer.
I also work for Bronx AIDS Services as a peer outreach volunteer.
And have recently been appointed to the HASA Advisory Board by City Council. I myself was diagnosed with HIV in 1995. And I have been a HASA client since 2001. From the Bronx to Botswana. Women living with HIV and AIDS are more likely to live in poverty. And that is no coincidence. In New York, women account for about 1/4 of new HIV infections. But we represent more than 1/3 living with AIDS and poverty. Globally, about half of all people living with HIV and AIDS are women. HIV is driven by social injustice.
Oh yeah.
When women don't have power in their relationships, in their homes, at their jobs, in the government, in the economy, they are most likely to get HIV. And that is a fact. And when women get HIV, it can be even harder to get housing and deal with the stigma. HIV has always preyed on people who have less power in society. And that's why politicians like Mayor Bloomberg are trying to take away our rights and our safety net. We have the tools to end the epidemic. We know how to get treatment to everyone who wants it. We know how to get people housing. And we know how to prevent new HIV infections. What we don't have are politicians who care enough to end it. That includes President Obama, Governor Cuomo, and once again Mayor Bloomberg. Broken policies and weak leadership puts people's lives at risk.
Broken policies and weak leadership puts people at risk.
The number one thing we hear is that we can afford to end the AIDS crisis.
The number one thing we hear is we can afford to end the AIDS crisis.
Maybe we could afford to end the AIDS crisis.
Maybe we could afford to end the AIDS crisis.
If it didn't disproportionately affect women of color, gay men, and people who use drugs. Let's be clear. We know where the money is. It's on Wall Street. Because we didn't screw up the economy, they did. And there are simple solutions. Like financial speculation. speculation tax, also known as the Robin Hood tax. That would raise revenue so that all people living with HIV have access to treatment. A Robin Hood tax is a tiny tax on high volume.
Tiny tax on high volume.
Financial transactions. The kind of Wall Street gambling that got us into the financial crisis in the first place. Locally, we can close hundreds of millions of dollars. Corporate tax loopholes. And hedge fund managers pay their fair share to make sure all homeless people living with HIV have affordable housing. We don't need our more stigmatizing policies, like Mayor Bloomberg's policies to deny shelter to homeless people. We don't need to be pushed in unpaid welfare to work programs that amount to slave labor.
That's right.
We don't need more hateful rhetoric that people with AIDS got what they deserve, which the Bloomberg administration's mouthpiece at the Manhattan Institute and New York Post have been saying. We are here today to demand that all people living with HIV have access to treatment and prevention. We are here today to demand an end to the drug war. We are here today to demand that all people living with HIV have stable housing. But ultimately, we are fighting for more social justice. So that everyone can live with dignity. Thank you.
We have one more speaker, and then we're going to march on Wall Street. Brent Nicholson, original Act Up New York.
All right, I'm going to send us off with a quote from Robert Kennedy. Cape Town, South Africa, 1966. Let no one be discouraged by the belief that there is nothing one man or one woman can do against the enormous array of the world's ills, against misery and violence, injustice. Few of us will have the greatness to bend history itself. But each of us can work to change a small portion of events. And in the total of all those acts will be written the history of this generation. It is from numberless diverse acts of courage and belief that human history is shaped. Each time a man or a woman acts to improve the lot of others, or strikes out against injustice, he or she sends a tiny ripple of hope, and crossing each other from a million different centers of energy and daring, those ripples